Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Royal Instinct. Today we are going to be looking at a few videos. Just one video, actually. We are going to be diving deep into the Steve Bannon and Jeffrey Epstein interview that he gave after his first arrest, before his second arrest. And it's an interesting video. I never actually watched it until a couple of days ago. And the first half, he mainly speaks about the financial crisis, the economy, finance, his insight into how the money markets around the world, the global financial system is working. And I thought he had some interesting points to say, because this is somebody who is on the inside. This is a Mossad, CIA agent, a intelligence asset who is who has huge influence in global events, in global money markets, in global finance. And it will be an interesting way to see how this guy views the world, how this guy views economics, finance, because that is what gains you power, right? And what are we doing here? This is a reminder to you. This is a call out to you to realize how the world really works, how these power structures are in place for them to succeed, and for the everyday people, the little guy, to be abused, to be used, to be stripped of the power, to be stripped of the resources, how they are taking advantage of people without any influence or power. Um, and I'm somebody who is looking at the system, how it is structured, and I am totally against it, which is why I have created this channel. I am somebody who is leaving the system. I have left the system. I am creating my own system. And that is what I'm here to do. I'm here to send a message out to the people. There's 10 billion people across the globe. I'm looking for 100 people to come and join me, to start something new, to come up with new creative ideas of how to run the world, with who are ambitious, who have foresight, who want to establish new nations, establish new kingdoms. Okay, and when you establish a kingdom, it will be you who is deemed a king. Okay, the king is the most powerful person in the world, and that is who we aim to be. Because once we have all the power, good people like us, we deserve the power, we deserve to run the world, and we have the good intentions to lead humanity into a next revolution, into a new and better future. Okay, but let's jump straight into this video.
Stuff. Let's give some basics or some things I want to do, inquire from the others. Walk me through the Santa Fe Institute. What was it about the time of the math? And this was in the late 90s. So they're not going to hear me on this part, right? We're going to do it both.
So Jeffrey Epstein was able to establish the Santa Fe Institute, which was a organization used to, I believe, bring about science, scientific minds, mathematical minds, to come up with new solutions to govern the world better.
It will not be on the video.
They looked into finance, how the financial institutes, financial system worked, and tried to run a deep dive and basically use that knowledge for their own advantage, right? Like, I mean, this wasn't an institute designed for the benefit of humanity. No, it was designed for the benefit of the elites, or the people in power, so that they can keep more wealth within their group, so that they can control more people, so that they can have more power over individuals.
Yeah, but we do have you recorded.
Fine. Remember, when you're answering on these questions, I'm not in the shot, and they're never going to hear my voice. So a little bit, you got to repeat in your answer, you got to repeat what my question was.
Oh,
a little bit.
Okay.
Santa Fe Institute. Why, when you're at the top of your game on Wall Street, do you decide to finance, which was at the time, or endow, or become the donor or sponsor, however you want to say it, for what was considered the most cutting edge group of mathematicians in the world? Action.
So Santa Fe Institute in the late 80s, early 90s, I was interested, I was on the board of Rockefeller. So that starts, Rockefeller is...
Think about it. This guy has access to, to get himself on the board of Rockefeller Institute. This guy has no no connections. This guy came really out of nowhere. He managed to become a maths teacher at a very prominent school with CIA connections, and he was handpicked to then, infiltrate. He was handpicked from that institute. Put into, I believe, Bear Stearns or either Lehman Brothers, one of those two investment banks, to work there. And then from there, he learned the financial system, the financial banking game. And then, they use that knowledge to, squeeze himself into places where high net worth individuals, want to be attached to more power. And by running a honeypot operation, he managed to infiltrate those people, to blackmail those people so that he can be close in proximity to those people.
University formed by John D. Rockefeller to sort of give back to the community. It's east side of Manhattan, except it was old. It was sort of old-fashioned. They were talking about medicine, and medicine by itself was again subject to the ideas of science. They were trying to use science to find cures for disease. And I said, no, we need to do something different. We need to start interdisciplinary work. In most...
How did a schmuck like you get on the board of Rockefeller? What year was that?
I don't remember. Late, I think 89 and 91.
So that's one of the most prestigious research places in the world, correct?
Yes.
Okay, how did a guy like you get on the board of a blue blood, internationally known?
Remember, this guy didn't. The way he got onto these boards is by being placed there by his own handlers, by the people that he, reports into. Many people say that he was a Mossad agent working on behalf of Israel. In order for them to be able to gain influence over wealthy people, over people who have, whether it be celebrities or politicians or high-ranking members of financial institutions. He would, befriend these people. He would, traffic women to these people. He would, have these affluent parties with other celebrities there. So if you say, to all these boring scientists that, there's going to be, all these wealthy celebrities there, of course you want to be at that party, right? Because once you are attached to once you are around celebrities, you feel kind of, that you've progressed in life, that you've made it, okay? And that was the attraction of being around a guy like this, right? That's why he was friends with Prince Andrew, for example, right? Because once you have somebody like that coming to your party, the party seems more attractive. Okay, yeah, I'll come along. And then, he will drug those people. He would, get them incredibly drunk. He will then throw women at those people. And then, he would film them having sex in one of his bedrooms. It is reported that there was many recording devices all over his mansions in Miami, in New York, on Epstein Island itself. And then he would record those people, and then the next day when they wake up with a hangover because they've been drugged, because they've been drinking heavily, he would sit them down, show him the recording, and be like, look, if you don't do what I am telling you to do, if you don't do what I say, I will release these files, I will release these videotapes, and I will ruin your reputation. And many people will fold and then go along with whatever narrative that he wants them to go with.
Hard research, Nobel Prize winners all over the place. How do they pick a guy like you, a trader from, or basically some guy from Bear Stearns?
Good question. So I was asked to be on the board of Rockefeller, and I think I was on the board of Rockefeller. There was a money manager who said Rockefeller needs someone with financial expertise because the university is growing and there's lots of new things. You have to, again, we go back to the original discussion the last time. Up until the mid-'80s or sort of mid-'70s, the most important thing was your name. If you were Rockefeller, you already were considered to be brilliant. If you were head of General Motors, it was your reputation. It was who you knew.
And that is why we are here establishing kingdoms. That's why we are setting ourselves up to be seen as subject matter experts, to be seen as people with authority. That is what we are doing here. That is what is our aim. We are here to launch new dynasties, launch new kingdoms. But you first have to be known. You have to establish a name that people respect, a name that people want to be associated with. And that is how we will define our reign across the globe. Okay, that is how we will get to the top. And you might be somebody watching, be like, well, like you might have low self-esteem, you might not really believe in yourself, and you're like, well, how the fuck am I going to do it? And I'm telling you now that you need to clear up the self-doubt that is holding you back. You need to clear out the fears that are in your head, and you need to be somebody who is able to go forth, express yourself, express your ideas, express your interests, the thing that you are most interested in, the thing that you can talk about most, what your life purpose in essence, right? You need to delve deep into that and bring forward new insights, new ways of looking at things. And when you tell the world, your knowledge, and then when it comes to that problem, when it comes to a subject, people will naturally defer to you. They would want to be around you. They want to know what you have to say around that subject. Okay. Like Jeffrey Epstein, he positioned himself as a financial expert, which is why people deferred to him. People wanted to know his insight. They wanted to know his advice on the topic of money, on the topic of finance, and that is how he ended up at the Rockefeller board of directors, I believe, right? At the Rockefeller Institute. How did he get there? He was placed there because he positioned himself to be seen as an expert in finance, a subject matter expert. And that is what we are doing here. We are positioning ourselves as subject matter experts, as points of authority. And once you have that authority, we are going one step further, one step beyond what most people are capable of, because we will be establishing kingdoms around our expertise. That is what we are doing here. That is what we are all about. And I want you to join me. If you want to be able to do that, if you want to be somebody who is seen as an expert, then reach out to me. Let's work together.
Who your family was, what was your character. And then in the mid-70s, basically, if you remember, you probably had a calculator. It was very advanced in those days to have a Texas Instrument calculator, where it could, by putting in the numbers, it would multiply for you to do square roots.
So that was the key to being around some of the most influential, most prominent people across the globe, right? Is having access to a calculator. Okay. It wasn't his brilliant mind. It wasn't his brilliant insight. It wasn't the knowledge that he had or the education that he had. It's because he knew how to use a calculator. All right. And he knew how to multiply big numbers. Right. Well, now we all have it. Okay. And, ChatGPT, AI technology is going to be able to displace a lot of these people. Okay, so that knowledge, that if you're a specialist in something, if you have specialist expertise, right, a lot of it can be done by AI. Okay, that is why you need to be seen as an expert. Okay, you need to put yourself out there, and people are not going to hire you for your services. Okay, you need to establish yourself and tell the world what you are good at, and then people will defer you. That is how you can compete against AI. That is how you can compete against the coming technological revolution.
And that was the first, and everyone who had a calculator was already advanced on Wall Street. A simple almost like your accountant. The most important parts of business were really now going to calculations. So it's not only mathematics, but it's things that could be calculated. Reputation couldn't be calculated. I could give you, are you a 10 on a reputation scale, an 8? What does it mean to have a measurement of your reputation? We'll get to that later. But places like Rockefeller needed someone to say, look, we're entering a different world where numbers and the numbers of companies, portfolio management was going to be balanced. It was going to be statistical. Jeffrey, could you come on the board? Potentially sit on the finance committee, Nancy Kissinger and a bunch of other people. And David Rockefeller.
So I mean, look at the proximity of people that he is around, right? He is around Kissinger's, right? He is around Rockefellers, right? These people, he is already close, okay? And then it's only natural that he will end up being around the circles of influential politicians, influential people at the top, and that is how he schmoozed himself up there, okay? Because he was able to place himself around those people, and how are you going to gain access to those people? Okay, it is an elite group. People have to place you there. He was placed by intelligence agencies. Um, so the game is rigged already. Okay, the game is rigged. You can't just start up and hoping to end up in these positions. You have to be, you have to have connections. You have to have, influence to get to those places. And I'm somebody who saw the system. I'm somebody who is leaving the system, which is why I'm creating my own system. Okay, and I want you to come on that journey. I want you to be somebody who is able to be in your life purpose, become an expert, be seen as a point of authority. Okay, because those are the people that I want to be friends with, and you should have the same ambition. Okay, wouldn't you want to be friends with normal people, or would you want to be friends with a bunch of kings? Okay, we are organizing the 100 Kings here at Royal Instinct, who are joining the Royal Alliance of Kings, the Amicis that I am building here at Royal Instinct. If you want to join, let me know.
And I got along very well. He was an unbelievable human being. Respectful to everyone. He introduced his driver as his colleague, not his driver. He would never say, "This is my driver." He said, "It's my colleague." And David started to explain to me world politics. So David would say, "Jeffrey, money is going to be sort of the most important things. People don't understand money. You seem to have this knack for money." I said to David, "Tell me about your life. What was the worst and the best part of your life?" So David said, "When I grew up, everyone knew I was a Rockefeller. They didn't know that my father told me he would not leave me a dime. No money. But every time we went out to eat, me and my 5 friends in school, they would leave me the bill. They would expect me to pick up the check because I was a Rockefeller."
I believe that story is false. If you are Rockefeller, you have access to no fucking money. All right. I get it that, you might not leave him a couple mil, but I bet you he had access to, 10, 20 grand to go out and pay for those dinners. Because, if you are Rockefeller, you have a reputation to maintain. You have to have a certain ability to show off, because status and the perception of who you are really, really matters in those circles. Okay. And a lot of the time, people like an underdog story. Okay. So if you're somebody who is born with a silver spoon in your mouth, right, it sounds more, it sounds more like a rags to riches story. Okay. Like if you're born into a billionaire family, right, and you have, no access to any money, right, so that you have to go out there and earn it yourself. Like, I don't buy it. If you had a few billion lying around and you had children, would you seriously give your children nothing? I doubt it very much.
And he said, "I was chairman of Chase Bank." And he said, "I remember like it was yesterday, one of the headlines in Time magazine said, 'David, please fire yourself.'" So he thought that there was a world that existed that would be a combination of both politics and business and leadership. What do I mean? He formed something called the Trilateral Commission. The Trilateral Commission is some spooky stuff. People said it was the Illuminati, there's some mystery about it, people that ran the world.
And what is the Illuminati? The Illuminati is, people say it's a bunch of powerful people coming to do human sacrifice to worship demons, deities. But if you really look about it, it is just a club of very influential people, very wealthy people who want to stay wealthy, who want to stay influential. Okay. And when you create this oligarchy of people who come together to discuss policy, to discuss the future of the world, how the world will be governed, you're excluding everybody else from those conversations, and that is how you maintain power. That is how you carry on your lineage, your family name. That is how you maintain power within a sphere of people that you want it to be in. Okay. and most people aren't privy to that information. Most people aren't included in those organizations. I mean, you just look at the World Economic Forum. It is another, closed door organization. Many people, many wealthy people, many CEOs, many tech CEOs, many scientists, all these influential people who hold some type of authority are all being invited into Davos, into the World Economic Forum, to propagate a same message, to be on the same page when it comes to policy of how the world's run and the future of the world. But you have to understand this. You need to ask yourself is, are you being asked about the future of the world? Okay, with the things that they are introducing, are you happy with what is going on? Okay, the answer is mostly likely no. Okay, nobody's asked our opinion on AI, because AI can potentially, literally, make most of low paying, low skill jobs, most of those people who do those types of jobs unemployed, right? And then once those people are unemployed, what effects will that have on society? A lot of people will suffer, a lot of people will get destroyed, a lot of people won't be able to partake in the dating market, right? So it leads to a reduction in the global population. It leads to a change in demographics. Okay, the haves and the have-nots, right? And um, you were not consulted on that. Okay, you were not included in those conversations. Those things were done, without your consent, without your permission, without you having any input into it happening. Okay, now you tell me, right? Is that how you want to live life? Okay, I saw this shit happening around me. Right, I saw that I had no, nobody was asking me for my opinion for those key decisions around the globe. And I was like, well, fuck this system. I will leave and I will create my own system, which is what I'm doing here. I'm creating my own system. And I don't want to be the only one doing it. I want to do it alongside 100 people, 100 influential people, 100 kings who are ready to build kingdoms, who are ready to establish their authority onto the world. And once you do that, we will form the new Illuminati. We will form the new network, which will dethrone the old system, overthrow the old government, overthrow the old people in charge, and we will usher in a new, better way of life, a new, better, more prosperous future for humanity.
It was politicians, but David said most countries, the politicians get elected for 4 years or 8 years, separate from the royal families in England or in the Middle East. Someone's there for 4 years and then they're not there anymore. The most important people to have stability and consistency would be businessmen. So he formed this trilateral.
So he recognized that as a king, you have stability because your reign lasts as long as you're alive and then get passed down to your children, right? When you're a politician, you're there for a 4-year term, a 5-year term. And you can get re-elected, 2 or 3 times. But then you will be kicked out, and then the next party, the next people will be ushered in line. So there is a lack of stability in that system, and he wants businessmen to be in charge, to take over, right? Because businesses create wealth, businesses, generate profit, generate revenue, and that is where the flow of money is going. And right now in the world, money is how you attain power. Money is gains you access, gains you autonomy, gains you authority across the globe. And if you want to live a free life, if you want to be free, you need to buy your way out of the system, which is what we are doing here. We are buying our way out of the system by becoming points of authority, by establishing trust around the globe, by establishing subject matter expertise. Okay, whatever it is that is your life purpose, whatever you are most interested in, we will set you up as a subject matter expert in that field. And once you have that authority, once you have that, once you are seen as a leader, and when people start deferring to you, it is only natural that we go one step more beyond to establish a kingdom. Because once you're seen as a king, people will naturally bow down to you, they will defer to you, and it is only a matter of time before we get to that place.
Federal Commission of businessmen and politicians from 3 major continents. So it was the North Americans, the Europeans, and the Asians. So he said to me, would you like to be on the Trilateral Commission? Now, I was 30 years old, 32 years old. I said, great. And he said, well, you have to fill out this application so they have your bio. And I looked at the list of people, and it was Bill Clinton, former president of the United States, Paul Volcker, every great leader in America, the Asians, the Japanese.
So you have all these people, all these leaders of groups, and then you have this random guy that is there, you know, who's being asked to join, right? It is very random, it's very suspicious. I'm suspicious of him. He is a intelligence agent. Okay, he is somebody who is slimy, who has wormed himself in there. And then once he got into that commission, obviously he befriended Bill Clinton, and they had a good old time on Little St. James, on the Lolita Express, and they had a fun time with him trafficking women straight to the former president.
And with a very long description of their history. And they asked me to fill in what I would like to have written. And I wrote Jeffrey Epstein, comma, just a good kid, which I thought was funny. Nobody else did. So in answer to what your question.
Yeah, I mean, that is just, that joke doesn't land. I mean, just a good kid. Was he hinting at his future activities? Was he hinting at what he's going to be doing to people? Just, I just want good kids. Is that what he was saying? Hint, hint, letting the people know that what he is into, so he can find the right people within that commission.
At that time, I recognized around the world that monies and currencies were not really well understood. But again, it was only numbers. So numbers, and I'll get to the fact that it was bad thinking. Numbers are very good.
Are most people that you meet, even on Trilateral Commission, when you meet most people, do you find most leaders financially illiterate, economically illiterate? Most political leaders don't come out of a background of finance. Most political leaders come out of a background of being popular. So in some of the countries, in the African countries, for example, they might have been a military person. They were a general. In some of the African countries, they might have been a disc jockey. Or in our country, they would have been an actor. The knowledge of money they don't have expertise, they have no degrees in finance. They really, and this is one of the major problems, their expertise, if they have any financial knowledge, is of their own checking account or bank account and filling in their own taxes. So many world leaders who don't really have a financial underpinning make fundamental errors when it comes to money on a country or institutional level. Let me give you an example.
So basically what he done there is he was able to leverage his knowledge, his expertise in finance, which is how you gain power, which is how you maintain power, which is how you gain leverage over people. And a lot of these leaders, a lot of these people, they were financially illiterate. Okay, so then there was this dynamic where he had certain information on how to, park their money, how to save their money, how to manage their wealth. And then, these people, who had power and access to power, but, didn't have that financial savviness, he was able to come in and establish himself as somebody who was able to help them. Okay. And because he was seen as an expert in finance, he was seen as somebody who knew what he was talking about. People deferred to him. People were ready to listen to him. Okay, that is how he gained power. That is how he was able to be seen as an expert. Okay, and then he used and abused his access to that power for hurting humanity, hurting the many people that he has hurt. He was an evil person at the end of the day. Okay, he had evil, nefarious intentions, and that is the decisions that he made. Right, but I want you to gain the same level of influence and power that he had, but I want you to make better decisions. Okay, because normally good people don't get into those positions. Okay, the people who get into those positions are psychopaths, they are narcissistic, they are sociopaths. Those people have those dark tendencies, they have a disdain for humanity, right? And because most people who are good, they end up having an inferior complex, they end up having self-doubt, which is what is holding them back, stopping them from taking action, taking charge and control of their lives. That is why you have to get rid of self-doubt, and we do do that here by removing self-doubt, the things that are holding you back, the fears that you have. Once you remove them, you are free to express yourself. You are free to take control, take the reins of your life, to be somebody who is in their life purpose, who is charismatic, who is confident, moving forward, moving as a conqueror. And that is what I want you to do. I want you to become a conqueror. I want you to become a leader. I want you to take over the globe. And we need more good people in positions of power. We need good people to rule the world. And the people who follow me, the people who join me, the people who become kings alongside me, they are good people. They have a good heart. The only thing that is stopping them is their self-doubt, which is what I help them remove. And once you remove that self-doubt, they are free to take over and go forth.
If you, Mr. Bannon, if I said your assets increased last year, you'd say, well, that sounds pretty good. And I'd say, what does that mean to you? You'd say, well, I have more money. I guess I'm wealthier. I'd say, yes. And if your debt increased, would you feel wealthier or poorer? You'd say, well, I don't want to have increased debt. I don't like the idea of that sound, increased debt. Now, that and world leaders understand when their assets go up, they feel better. However, institutions like banks, things that people don't really understand are financial underpinnings of banks. When I say your bank, Mr. Bannon, you have the Bannon Bank, you doubled your assets.
So basically what he's going to go into now is that most people are afraid of debt. Most people want to be more wealthy, hoard money, and increase the amount that they hold in assets, right? But what banks do, right? And, traditionally, most bankers, a lot of the big banks around the world were, established by Jews. The way that Jewish people, especially if you look at the Rothschilds, what they knew was, right, if I establish a bank, okay, and I lend that money, I'm going to own debt. Right, I don't own the asset anymore. I'll give the money to you, right? And you might be a king of a country, you might be a politician, a president of a country, and I'm lending to you, right? Your bank balance goes plus, mine goes negative, right? But I know that you're in debt to me, and because you're in debt to me, I'm now the most powerful person, right? Because I can call in the debt, right? And if you don't honor that debt, then we can put you in jail, especially if you have the laws in place to protect that type of lending, that type of banking. And that is why the most powerful person isn't somebody who has the most money. It's somebody who really owns people, right? Because if I lend you money, you go buy a house, right? Like, you now own a house, but you're paying that mortgage off to me, right? I own you. I own your house, okay? So you have to do what I say, right? So if I tell you to do this, you have to do that, right? And that is how a lot of people are controlled, okay? Because they are not financially savvy, they are financially reckless, and then they get into types of debt, which then they call in a banker to sort out. Somebody like Jeffrey Epstein, they will lend them money, they will make that problem go away. But now you're in debt to that person, okay? Monetary debt and actual debt in terms of like a favor, right? And that is how he got these people. He was able to manipulate those people by getting influence and being indebted to Jeffrey.
Sounds good, but what does it really mean? It means people owe you more money. You don't have any more money. What? Yeah. A bank's assets are how much it is owed by other people. That's crazy. So if the bank goes from $2 billion of assets to $10 billion, it means people owe it an additional $8 billion, but their assets have gone up. So the terminology of assets and liabilities is different for banks. It's not natural. And what most people, and you ask questions about world leaders, there's many people, I think your old boss Mercer understood, there's a fundamental part of money which is called fractionalized banking.
And fractionalized banking is basically, let's say I'm the bank and you put in $1,000 into your bank account, okay? As a bank, the rule is I have to have $1,000, $100 left of the money that you gave me, but $900 I can go out there and give out to, to invest in my own things, to lend to other people. I can do what I want with your money, right? That is what fractional reserve banking is. That is how these mega banks use your savings, your hard-earned money to make a profit, to lend out to other people, to nation states, to other wealthy individuals. They use and abuse your money for their own financial gain. And that is why the banks, what they're most afraid of is if there was a bank run, okay, where a bank run is a event where due to fear and uncertainty, everybody runs to withdraw their money at the same time, right? Which is, during the great financial crisis, you saw that here in the UK, people were lining up to take their money out because they were afraid that these banks were going to collapse, that they were going to go under. And then, because the bank, because of fractional banking, they don't hold that same amount. So say, if everybody, say if I hold $1 million in savings that people put into the bank, right? Well, I've actually given out 900,000. Okay. So I can't then give you the bank, which causes a run on the bank, which causes fear, uncertainty, doubt. And then basically, this is just everyday people doing a run on bank. But then when you have major institutions calling in their money back, right, then you have a liquidity crunch, which is what we saw in 2008, which is what kickstarted the great financial crisis. This is how the world nearly collapsed because of this type of banking.
And fractionalized banking is something that finance people understand, and the people on the street, and when I say people on the street, that's where I was when I started on Wall Street, would find it impossible to believe. Impossible. Why? Bannon Bank, I give you $1. Just one single dollar. In our system of banking, I would say, okay, Steve, I gave you $1. How much could you lend out to your friends? And your natural reaction would be probably something less than $1 because I want to keep something in my pocket. The way our system works is if you as a bank are holding my dollar, you can lend out an additional $8 or $9. No, it's impossible. I only have $1, Jeffrey. We have something called fractionalized reserves, which is if you have 1, you can lend out 9. That's the way our system works. And so not only do world leaders not understand banking,
and that is how money is created out of thin air. Okay, that is why money, the monetary value is fine. It's something that doesn't even really matter because at that stage, it is not about the ability to how much money that you got. It's about the ability to use other people's wealth, other people, position other people, use them as pawns for you to go out there and make money out of thin air, right? And that is what we are doing. We are creating nation states. We are creating new kingdoms. We will be taking over. We will own it all.
But the man on the street, my father who worked in the park department, it would be beyond his imagination that people could lend out more money than they actually had in their pocket. Next question.
But how did this, in understanding that, when you get on something like the Trilateral Commission, you're on the board at Rockefeller, which is the most advanced research. You get brought into the Trilateral, which is the elite of the elite. How, since you're only at that time
30-something years old.
8 years from teaching at Dalton, right? You're a Dalton.
No, 10 years.
10 years teaching at Dalton.
Yes.
Walk us through. I mean, put us in the room. Walk me through exactly what it felt like. What it felt like being on the board at.
So he's about to go into it, asking the question of, you taught at this Dalton school, a private school, you taught mathematics for 10 years, and now you find yourself the head of the Trilateral Commission, right? And hopefully he goes into it, but I think Jeffrey Epstein will deflect because he does not want to give away the real answer.
Rockefeller, we got these Nobel laureates, and you're sitting there making decisions, and you start to meet these people at Rockefeller. And you start to meet these people at the Trilateral Commission. What did it feel like?
It's a great question. So what did it feel like?
That's what I'm in the business of asking.
what does it feel like meeting some of these people like Kissinger or Rockefeller? And those are two extraordinary people. But in general, I think the question, the people on Wall Street, I tell the story, the first day, one of the first days when I was in Wall Street, someone said to me, would you like to buy ATV? And I was looking in the brochure and I couldn't figure out what stock had a symbol of ATV. And when I finally said, well, I can't find it, and they said, what's the matter with you? Do you want to buy ATV? Which is, he was selling hot televisions, stolen televisions from the floor of the American Stock Exchange, referred to in common parlance as the televisions fell off the truck. So I knew what that phrase meant from Coney Island. But what I found was most people, be it in business, in normal life, or in the world leaders, don't really understand money.
What? So you asked him what it felt like to be part of the Trilateral Commission, and he just gave this whole nonsense answer about somebody selling him a TV, and he thought it was a ticker symbol on the stock exchange, right? This is why he is a deception. This is why he is trying to lie to the people. He is trying to pull a fast one. This is why he is hiding behind a smokescreen. Okay, he is somebody who is not telling the truth, right? So if you can't take anything that is coming out of his mouth as fact, because he is trying to hide something that is going on in the background. Okay, because the natural question would have been, how does it feel to be on that commission, right? And he said, yeah, of course. He said Kissinger and Rockefeller were great people, extraordinary people to meet. And then he was talking about other world leaders, and then does he feel he doesn't deserve to be there? No, because he has inside information. Okay, he is trying to be their handler. He is there in order for him to trap them in his honeypot operation. He is now trying to deflect. He is trying to pull a fast one over the interviewer.
It is something they think about. They have a sense of what it is. They certainly want more of it. But they also make statements like, we want more money, but we don't want more debt, which just shows a misunderstanding of what money at its core really is. So most people don't, they want to make it, they want to save it, but...
So at this point, the interviewer should really push back. He should be like, no, hang on, you're not answering my question, and then return to the question. But because Steve Bannon, is he in cahoots with Jeffrey? Was he softballing these questions towards him? He's not really pushing back. He is allowing him to talk and waffle and speak nonsense.
To understand it intimately is not a normal characteristic.
At the first trilateral or something.
Yeah, good.
Just give me approximate. You joined the Trilateral
I
Commission.
think it might be...
And we'll be able to show we'll pull down the.
So you saw that it just cut out there briefly for a few seconds. Did Jeffrey not like something there? Did he cut it out so he could be like, "No, man, don't push me down this line of questioning"? What is he trying to hide?
Chart of where your name was, but just give me roughly when it was.
I think it could be 90. I don't remember.
Okay. Let's say early 90s.
Yes.
When you got on the Trilateral Commission and had the first, do you remember where the first meeting was?
It was in Tokyo.
In Tokyo. And at what hotel?
I would like to say the Hilton, but it's probably not.
And it's a 3-day, 4-day? Give me some
3-day event, and
walk me through the whole thing.
Speeches.
It starts with a dinner. Just walk me through it.
It was boring.
You couldn't possibly think it was boring. It's bullshit.
So he's in the room with all these influential people, and he calls it boring because he doesn't want to be asked about what goes on in that environment, about what is happening. He does not want to be. He doesn't want to give away any information because it could potentially incriminate him. It could potentially incriminate the people that are involved. This is a secret meeting between influential people. Things happening in the background. Jeffrey is being very resistant to this. What is really going on? What was happening at this commission?
It was boring.
You had to be stars in your.
He's saying it was boring. Well, the story he told about the TV earlier, that was fucking boring, but he still fucking said it, right? We want to know what's going on. Let's see if Steve Bannon pushes further.
Your eyes.
No.
Did you fly over privately?
Yes, but it wasn't my plane.
So he's on a private plane with influential people, but it's very, very boring. No, Jeffrey, let us know what the fuck was going on.
So it didn't count?
No.
You fly over.
Yes.
And
it was
who were the first, like when you first met those leaders, you had to be wowed.
No.
You're 10 years out of Coney Island.
No, I am not wowed by people of position. I'm wowed by people of great ideas. And I don't care if it's the bus driver. I don't care if it's the student I had who has teeth coming out.
Well, these guys have to have great ideas. They're the leaders of the three great continents of the world: North America, Europe, and Japan.
No, many of these world leaders become world leaders because
The reason why he's not wowed is because he knew that they were pawns, that those are political pawns put in place, and then intelligence agencies come in and then they take over. They put them in the secret rooms to be like, look, okay, even though the people of your country voted you into the presidency or whatever higher position it may be, right? The truth of the matter is, if you don't do what we say, we will ruin your fucking life, okay? Because they always have dirt on these people. You have to understand that many politicians, they just want to win the popularity contest. And if you're willing to, if you're so desperate to be famous, if you're so desperate to be liked by everybody, right? You want to be around people, and many people can take advantage. Okay, if you want to, these people end up being, sexually blackmailed. They end up doing something stupid and then need somebody else to cover their tracks. That is where these intelligence agencies come in. That is where a guy like Jeffrey Epstein comes in to take control back from you. That is why he had no respect for these people. That is why he wasn't wowed by those people, because he knew that he was going to get one over on them, right? He was going to lure them into a corner, and then he was going to attack. He was going to put them in chains, and he was going to blackmail them into oblivion.
they're popular and they were able to get votes, or they were able to convince people to vote for them. I learned later. Many of them were just good at what they did in terms of politics. Remember, world leaders are politicians in general. They're not scientists, they're not intellectuals, they're not great thinkers, they're great politicians.
At the first Trilateral Commission meeting that you remember in Tokyo, sometime in the early 90s, do you remember what were the big issues of the day that they were talking about, and what did you think about it?
Yeah, in fact, it was funny because they were talking about inflation, and they were worried that what would happen, how do you control inflation? And as a mathematician, I didn't understand the concept. I don't understand the concept today. How's that possible? Well, when you talk about most things to do with money, money is meant to be local. It's US dollars. Then I understand what it means. If inflation, it means my dollar today inflates, and it doesn't buy as much as it did a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and inflation is basically where you have an increase in the money supply, okay, where you have an increase in money circulating, right? Where basically you're giving wealth to more people and they're able to buy assets at cheaper price. But then over time, because there's less supply of that good, that the price has to go up. Okay, so then inflation isn't the circulations, the currency is inflating. The inflation is the price of goods is inflating, right? And the price of goods is measured in the whatever currency you have, which is why they say, oh, a currency inflation, right? But that is not actually how it works. It is the price of goods are becoming more expensive, which is what we are experiencing right now. We are experiencing a cost of living crisis. Many people cannot afford because the wages that they earn, right, cannot cover their expenses. It cannot cover the cost. Basic goods such as food, such as your car payments, your rent, those type of things. Your bills that you have to pay. The money that you're earning isn't is barely covering those things, okay? And then there's no money left for luxury goods, for you know, things like holidays, things, luxury items, newer clothes. Many people are skipping over those things, but the people at the top, the people who have access to all the wealth, they are still living large.
The prices go up. I don't have, it seems that everything is great, but in fact, my dollar is shrinking in value.
If you, and you're the financial genius here. I'm just a lowly M&A guy.
Sure. If you let me finish the thought.
Go ahead.
So if you're in America, you can feel inflation. Your salary's gone up, but you can't buy the same car. In fact, it starts to feel weird because the value.
That's why I wanted to ask the question then. This is my point.
Sure.
The people who live and breathe this, the central banks, have been haunted by the specter of inflation since the late 70s.
Yes.
First off, tell our audience, how did that happen? The two great financial events in the 20th century, I'm not going to get to the 21st, were the great inflation in Europe after World War I, the Great Depression, the hyperinflation in Germany that led to the rise of Hitler, and then this inflation in the mid-70s. Before you go to explaining inflation, why is this specter of inflation always the central thing in central bankers' minds?
Because it goes back to the first concept I said, the weird concept of fractionalized reserves. The system is not well understood. And most systems, in fact, are not well understood. We don't know how our digestive system.
Stop. This is
I
impossible.
understand.
This is impossible. The world banking system, the world currency system, the world monetary system
Yes.
has to be so well understood by the Greenspans of the world and the Bernankes of the world and you, right? The currency traders, the guys making billion-dollar bets every day, the legend.
He can't believe it because he thinks that the people in power, the people at the top, they are competent people, that they have a clue what they're doing. But you have to remember that they are people who got there because of nepotism, that they are people who got there because they knew the right people, right? And if you want to be somebody influential in the world, do you know those people? Do you have access to those people? Right? You are looking at those people thinking like, oh, they must be very smart. They must be very successful. They must be very good at what they do. And then you compare yourself to that type of person and you think you're not good enough, when in reality it is they are putting people in place who they believe are their friends, who will do as they say. They are literally puppets. So don't compare yourself to puppets. Don't compare yourself to people who are just doing as they're told. Okay, you use your power, come up with a new system, establish a new system, be somebody who is in charge of their life, who has autonomy over their own decision
Very guy
making.
on Wall Street in the late 90s, Solomon Brothers.
Lou Ranieri?
No, the guy that wrote the money.
Michael Lewis? Marius Poker?
Yeah, Lars Poker. Who's that about? That great trader.
Lou Ranieri.
No, it wasn't the guy that ran the desk. That eventually ran the hedge fund that went long-term capital.
Yes, I don't remember.
Who's the guy?
I want to say, I don't remember.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Lou Ranieri is big, but
Yes.
those guys have to understand the system perfectly.
No, they don't understand the system. They understand the local part of the system. So, for example, why is not only inflation, most bankers are terrified if the public understood that the bank really doesn't have their money at any one time. It's one of the things during the Depression, there were runs on the bank. The reason the banks don't keep much money in the actual bank is they assume that not everyone's going to want their money on the same day. So it's not really the fear of inflation. The fear is a run on the bank. Everybody wants to take out something that doesn't really exist. Inflation is tied to interest rates. It's a more complicated example. But when your money doesn't buy the same amount of product this year than it did last year, if it buys less and less, like it happened, you used the term hyperinflation. There's certain countries that are not managed well, like in Africa at the current, a $100 billion bill in Zimbabwe is worth 1 American cent. That's the perfect example of hyperinflation. It goes up, it doubles every day. So people are afraid that their value in the system starts to break down. But so if I say,
So in essence, the financial system is a belief in the financial system, is a confidence that comes along with it. As long as you feel that that system is working, as long as you feel that that system is benefiting you, as long as that system is stable, you will feel more confident and you will feel more stress free, and you'll be able to, feel like you can walk around the world and be free, be autonomous, make your own decisions, right? Because it's a feeling, right? And once you wake up, once you realize that this system is rigged, that this system is put in place to hold you back, to put you in chains, to blind you, and to steal away your resources, steal away your power, then you will realize that this system isn't um, great. Okay. And at first, you might feel less confident. At first, you might feel more fearful that the system isn't capable of helping you. But what I'm telling you is, instead of worrying about the current system, about worrying about where this system is headed, leave the system and create your own system. Okay, which is what we are doing here. We are creating new systems. We are creating new nations. We are creating new kingdoms. That is what we're all about. We will take over the globe and then make sure that people like this, Jeffrey Epstein, will never come into power again.
to you, does your doctor understand your body system? You'd say, well, I hope so, because I want him to keep me healthy. But you could have a kidney infection, you could have a heart attack, you could have a broken knee. There's lots of pieces of this system. And in fact, when you ask the question, very few doctors understand your entire body. There's a specialist for your knee, there's a specialist for your polynoidal cyst, there's a specialist for your head, and now we have specialists in different areas. So and I'm going to get to your first question about Santa Fe Institute. The world economy and your body.
I mean, it's about time he gets to, the first fucking question, right? Instead of, it's been 20 minutes in, he hasn't really said anything. He hasn't really answered any of the questions that we need to know. We wanted to know is, how did he end up at the Santa Fe Institute? How does it feel? How did those meetings go? What was happening in the background? And he is now talking to you about that, the doctors that you hope to help you don't know how the human body works. Okay, he is going all around the houses. He is trying to mislead you and misdirect you.
Are both comprised of little systems interacting with each other and making one big system.
This is what's stunning for all the little guys out there, the populist movement, the little guys that haven't had a pay raise in 30 years. They think that these elites...
Yeah, they haven't had the pay raise because wages are stagnant and inflation is out of control. Okay, and this is, I think interviews done in 2014, 2015. So now, especially past COVID, inflation is out of control. That is why we are going through a cost of living crisis. Many people are suffering. Many people are really in a great lot of pain. And a lot of it is also to distract you from what is really going on, the real power plays that are happening in the globe, which is why you need to be part of a network, a powerful network who can go up against these elites, who are able to really challenge those people, to replace those people potentially. Okay, because we are offering a better way of life, a better new solution. We are coming up with creative ideas. That is what we are all about here at Raw Instinct, and I want you to join. Okay, if you ever thought that you're supposed to do something great in your life, that you were meant for greatness, this is your moment. This is the moment you decide to get up off the fence, off the to stand up off your seat, and run towards glory, or you can remain seated in the background, fade into the background, be a NPC that is a background character, or you decide to be the main character. Okay, and if you do decide to be the main character, we are here to help you. We are here to establish connections, establish new ways of thinking, to help you become a subject matter expert, for you to be in your life purpose, so that you can come up, become a more powerful version of yourself and go up against these evil elites.
Have everything. The guys in the room making the decisions, the party at Davos guys. You're sitting there, you don't think many people today really understand the complexity and really all the moving pieces and how they interconnect to the world's financial system.
No, not only don't they understand the complexity, and that goes back to Santa Fe Institute was an attempt of trying to see if there was a way to mathematize, formularize, or algorithmically understand what the term complexity means. That goes back to the original question. Complex systems are complex by definition. But there's not necessarily, it's not one level of complexity. We might say, well, our fingers are complex, the movements, the muscles of our hands, but it's not as complex as the blood system. Now I have a circulatory system. I have systems on top of systems, so that there's no one group of or person that really understands the way the body works. There's no one group that understands the way the financial systems work. You might understand U.S. bond market. Now, you've asked about the trade of long-term capital. That was a bond fund, very small part of this very complex system. So the goal...
And he wants it to remain complex. He wants it to remain difficult to understand. He wants it to sound scary and deep, and that basically nobody knows what the fuck is going on, that only he has the answers, because that is how he is maintaining power. That is how he remains to be the person who is in control, who knows what it is that he is doing, what is going on with the world. That is how he remains to be seen as a subject matter expert. Okay, that is why people defer to him. That is how he was able to misguide many people. That is how he was able to dupe many powerful leaders, to sexually blackmail these people, to coerce them into doing nefarious things. And that is how he remained in power for so long. Okay, he had many people in the media, many politicians, many powerful agents, intelligence agents at his disposal, and that is how he was able to remain somebody who had a veil of power over them. Okay, because he made everything sound very complex, and that the average person, that you won't be able to understand. Okay, which is why you need to take back control. You need to be in your life purpose. You need to take ownership of your life, of other people's lives. Okay, because the people need more good people. The people need a hero. People need better leaders, because if they don't, then people like Jeffrey Epstein will win. This is how they remain in power. They make everything sound uber complex. And when you are a subject matter expert, you can come along and debunk a person like that. That is how we will stay powerful. That is how we will win. It is our destiny. We are the chosen ones. That is what we're doing. We are going to be in control. But that is it for today. Thank you very much, and maybe we'll do a part 2. Let me know, because I think later on in the interview, he goes into philosophy and more spiritual matters, and I think that is quite interesting to see how an evil person like this, a pedo like Jeffrey Epstein, thought about spirituality and religion. So it might be a interesting thing to go into. Let me know if you're interested in viewing that. But that is it. Thank you and goodbye.